how have things been?
Oh, things have been good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just bought a house.
I bought a house last year. I got a piano for it yesterday.
Okay.
So
I kind of saw some of those pictures on Instagram of you, a couple guys hauling in a big. What's the brand name of it?
It's a Heinzman. Heinzman is probably like 100 years old. The strings are pretty old, which I don't mind. Needs a good tune though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you plan
nice.
to do with it?
I've been wanting a piano for a long time. I have had one in the past, but they're pretty big and heavy, and I've been renting spaces for so long that it wasn't worth dragging a piano to and from.
Yep.
So I feel like settled in now. Like I have a house that I own. I can just basically do whatever I want there, and just like brought a piano in yesterday. Plan on doing a lot of songwriting with that.
Yeah.
And I like piano. Like I've basically grown up with guitar as my main songwriting instrument.
Yeah.
For like 20 or more years, and then I finally about 5 years ago sort of like somewhat lost interest in it / gained interest in piano. So
me too, actually. Like I know that growing up in Haspler, I was always very into what you were doing, so I did shamefully steal a couple of your guitar tricks to kind of like go, and I adapted it. You did a lot of like chucking, and then I would add that in because I was into your style of folk.
Oh, cool!
Which
thanks.
People should definitely check out. Do you have any way of like
the Nervous Wrecked stuff?
Maybe MD Edwards.
And MD Edwards. All that stuff is on their own separate Bandcamp pages.
We'll put a link to it.
And it's on it's on iTunes and Spotify and that kind of stuff, so you can stream it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we can do links for that. Nervous Wrecked was a band that I think that's how we met. Yep. Maybe 2008 or 2009 or something. Band that I was in / had formed and was the songwriter for. And that sort of merged into Lazu Lie, which I don't know if you know this, but your sister Andrea is teaching me piano now.
I didn't know that.
It's kind of a new thing.
That's interesting because she won't even teach me piano.
Well, I've had a few lessons, but she gave me a lot to work with, and I just said I'll call you when I'm ready for the next lesson. Yeah. I've got a lot of scales to go over.
Yeah, that's kind of the...
But anyways, yeah, Andrea was in that band Lazu Lie, and Dave Fox, haven't seen him in a while. Yeah. But
so that band has like 2 albums out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That was a really good band.
And then MD Edwards was like my solo project that I put out 2 albums, which was also like unbeknownst to me at the time, like the end of my band days. Lazu Lie was the last band that I was in, and that was 10 years ago now. Mm-hmm. So I kind of miss playing in bands, but
yeah, me too.
Not enough to start one apparently. It's been a while. So I always say like maybe I'll do that again, but there's something that I like about just being a songwriter and doing what I feel like in the moment.
I kind of feel like if you look at any artists that have gotten anywhere, majority of them have kind of like tag teamed their way to being known. You know what I mean? Like they have a band with 4 like great musicians, and then they get themselves visible into the world, and then they kind of do their solo thing. I feel like our circle of friends and whatnot, we kind of tried that, but for the majority of the time we're always doing our own thing, which it's usually a lot different than each other.
Lazu Lie was like an extreme example of artistic differences within a band, right? Because not only were we dealing with those usual things that bands would deal with in terms of the direction that you want to go in and what you're sort of about, but every single one of us was a singer-songwriter too. Yeah. And like my songs didn't really necessarily mix with somebody else's songs, and it just became like a really random collaboration type band,
which I think is kind of Beatlesque when you think about it. And I think that's kind of what gave that super band their quality.
It was like a super band basically.
Having multiple musicians have their voice led to the array of artistic expression in the music, and that's, I don't know, I thought a lot of people were into that band.
Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. It was like difficult to manage.
Yeah, for sure.
It was like sort of like a traveling Wilburys sort of feel, where like everybody's doing their own thing but backing each other up at the same time.
Yeah, it was. But I think the overall effect, everyone kind of played their instrument for the most part. I think there wasn't too much interchange. No, not a lot of Sloan effect going on. But
Yeah, no, I mostly stuck to guitar in that band, but I also did branch out and do some bass and then some drums. And like that was fun to switch instruments, and if you do it live on stage, people are sort of impressed, like, oh look, they're switching instruments. But it's like, it was a lot to organize.
yeah,
We didn't last very long. It was like 2 years tops, I think.
yeah, it seems to be like the lifespan of most of the bands that either of us have been in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that being said, I think I do have a couple questions written down here I might want to ask first.
Sure.
I did see some of your drum tracks of you're going to be putting out 2 EPs, what, in May?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to get them released for my birthday, just to give it a deadline basically, which is May 17th, because I've been working on these all fall and all winter, and I thought I would maybe finish them in the winter, which was pretty ambitious actually, because it's 10 new songs that I was writing and recording and producing all at once, so I didn't really start till September, so I guess it's not terrible that it took like 8 or 9 months instead of like 5 or 6. But yeah, now I'm just telling myself May 17th, I just want to wrap it up and like move on.
Good luck.
Yeah, because I feel like, and I have done, let me just make sure this is still, yeah. I've done recording projects, particularly I did one just over a year ago. It turned into an album of mine called Popular Mythologies, and it was the first like full-length Conductor album, 9 songs.
Oh, yeah. So let's tell everybody your current moniker.
Yeah,
which
Conductor.
has been lasted what, 4 years?
Yeah.
Is Conductor.
Yeah, I started messing around with electronic stuff and keyboards. It was more lo-fi keyboard and drum machine stuff like as early back as 2013.
Yeah, it sounded a lot like, it sounds very, very kind of like birthed from the Nervous Wreck project. And,
Yeah.
But it's you in general. It's
Yeah.
who you are, but maybe more electronic in its essence.
It started out as like drum machine, keyboard, and sample machine. It was pretty lo-fi and pretty experimental in terms of the songwriting. But it's been 7 years or so, 7 or 8 years of doing that, and then eventually learning to record my own music, sort of figuring out through the songwriting process like what sort of direction I was going in, because I didn't have one for a little bit. I didn't really start calling it Conductor until a few years ago, because 2018 I put out a 5-song EP called Mixed Media, and that was the first time that I like put the name Conductor on it.
Are these all available on the array of media platforms?
Yeah, so Mixed Media was the first album that I had self-recorded, but I did get somebody to produce it for me. It's Russell Jennison from the short films and Vulcan Nightclub. He's in a couple other bands too, I think.
This is a collaboration, you said?
Well, he produced it and mastered it for me.
And do you consider that like he has some songwriting partaking in that album, or would you say just kind of took care of the sound?
I would say he took care of the production basically, and I had verbal notes for him, but I wasn't quite at the stage where I was able to produce my own music. I was just sort of learning how to record it. So that was 2018. So January 2020, I put out a 9-song album called Popular Mythologies. That was the first album that I produced on my own.
I haven't heard this one, but
it actually took me so long to finish that like by the time I released it, I wasn't really that inspired by it anymore.
It's pretty common.
I think it took so long because I was learning how to produce my own music while I was producing my album. So things that took me a month or 2 back then might take me a week now.
Yeah, that's the cool part, I heard.
Yeah, so as soon as I finished that album, which came out January 2020, I was like feeling sort of underwhelmed about not being interested in it anymore, although it's like my first real album. So I immediately just like sat down and wrote like 4 brand new songs and like sort of just like put them out as fast as I could. and that turned into Aurora Program, which is the 4-song EP. It's my most recent EP.
Yeah, I enjoyed that
July
one.
2020. So from January to July, I spent about 6 months doing those 4 new songs.
July 2020 was the completion of that album?
Yeah, I released it. I think July 31st it came onto streaming sites.
I don't know what it was, but I can't put my finger on it. I know it came into my mind for like a short period of time when I listened to it, and then I was like, oh, that's where he's getting the influence from. Not totally, but just like he's pulling from that, maybe. But it doesn't really matter. You're obviously taking from a few different areas and genres, but
I think it's kind of sort of ironic that I spent the least amount of time on Aurora Program, and I think it's my best work as Conductor.
Where did you derive the influence for that
for the
EP?
album?
Yeah. 'Cause I'm trying to put my finger on it, but I can't.
Yeah,
really.
I try to, and I say this to people. I say this to my partner too, because she's always like, "What's this song about?" or "Who's that song about?" And I don't really like to sort of say that I write songs about people or about things. Like, I don't want to be like an autobiographical writer, even though I do appreciate a lot of those artists. I just don't feel like I'm going in that direction for my own music.
Okay.
Not this project, at least. So I go for like vibes. Like, I feel like different albums of mine or even different songs of mine are just like sort of like a setting. Like, here's like a certain mood that I'm like putting out there, or like a certain feeling. So the songs have like moods to them, I think. And I think Aurora Program was sort of like a little bit of like a gratitude album, which is something that I haven't really done before. I don't think that like a lot of my music has been like fairly morose, like sometimes depressing, but like it's like that's what I like. I like a lot of music like that, so I would write that music also. But this album had more of like the beats were a little bit more chill, and the lyrics were like a little bit more like inspired, I guess, or like, I don't want to say positive, but they were sort of like positive lyrics, just like gratitude lyrics, which is not the direction that these next 2 EPs are going in, but that's okay, because I like to sort of like, what am I going to say here?
Can you give us a sneak peek into where that no editing. Maybe you can give us a sneak peek into the kind of forecasted mood. I know I heard a few drum parts on Instagram, but what's the kind of mood that you're trying to project on
these
next
albums
EPs?
are like, they're very different musically, and
Let's
one
start
of
with
them,
the acoustic electric one.
well, there's an electronic EP. It's going to be 5 songs. It's called Parapraxis, and I'm doing another 5-song EP, which is my first non-electronic album under the name Conductor.
That's what you were saying to me.
Conductor was supposed to be an electronic project of mine, and at this point, I'm just going to stick with that name and release any of my music under that name, which is like, maybe not like the greatest move in a marketing sort of sense, but it's just like me. I feel like it's my music, and whatever I do, it's like, I don't care if it sounds like a dance beat song or if it's just like a piano and a voice. I'm just going to call it Conductor. So both of those albums will sound quite different, but there is a theme that ties them together, which is more like loneliness / I sort of went through a deep depression while I was writing a lot of this song, a lot of these songs. So it's just like sort of a way, like a cathartic way to just like go into some dark places.
And maybe a healing process.
Yeah, for sure. Not that I was like trying for it at the time, but it is like healing, I think.
I feel like for me it's just automatic. When you go at something, regardless of how maybe abstract it comes off, or exactly how it is projected, if it's like straightforward or whatnot in the music, it ends up having that effect on you as a songwriter. You can't avoid the healing process, or it can make you crazier, but I think you tend to have like a goal in mind. And speaking of goals, do you see a destination, a plateau, or a resting place where you can reflect and find pride in like your entire discography if you haven't already.
Hmm.
Do you feel like satisfied with kind of what you've done so
Yeah,
far? Do you feel like if you were to like kind of get a serious illness today after you leave here, that you would end up being happy?
Yeah, I think so. I try to outdo myself every time I release an album, and it may or may not work every time, but that's my goal. Is like, if I don't feel like this is my best work ever, then like I don't want to show anyone.
Really?
And I have put out albums where afterwards I thought that's not my best work, but
Can you tell us which
you
one you
kind of
don't
know.
like?
I already sort of alluded to the Popular Mythologies album. I think it was just because I spent so long working on it, and it was my first album that I was learning how to produce while I was producing it.
Mhm.
And the songwriting itself was like a bit experimental still like sort of fumbling around and figuring out like what I was good at doing.
It's interesting that that's one that I don't know about, so you haven't really pushed it too much. 'Cause
Yeah,
there's that
I don't
one.
think it's bad.
There's
Like
snakes and ghosts. What is the?
yeah, Snakes and Circles were the
Circles,
two
yeah.
bigger Nervous Wrecked albums.
Yeah. So there's those two. How many have you done?
Oh, like of all of my projects,
'Cause you got
there would be like
Extinct or Alive.
20 or something.
20?
Yeah.
Wow.
I've actually thought about making a Bandcamp page for every single one of my releases, which would go back to 1999, I think. I was probably 15, and this band I was in put out a 4-song demo, and I would never want to listen to it again. I think I have a couple copies in my basement, but
I love that stuff. But I like the humanizing material.
yeah.
And I like when artists show kind of how they got where they went. So on that note, if you don't mind, can you walk us through your songwriting process? If you can, choose a song off of the Aurora program, since that's kind of the vibe of this interview. And just choose one and go over it a little bit. Not necessarily in the greatest detail, but kind of like what you start with, and then do you start with lyrics? Do you start with the keyboards or guitar? I guess it's electronics, so you start with a synth.
Sometimes I have lyrics. Like sometimes I have sort of a tune in my head and I'll write it down. It used to be more on pieces of paper, and now it's usually on the notes in my phone. Just to like, if I think of something that sort of catches me and I'm like, I want to remember that, and I won't remember it, so I write it down. And that might turn into a song like the next day or the next year. There's usually like one line that sort of pops out, and then I build the lyrics from that one line. It's like this one line is going to be like the focal point of the song, so you can like ripple out from there and sort of build more around it. It gives you like a base or something to start
And
with.
you say around like before it and after it type of thing. It's not just, you build to this always the starting. So it could end up being like a piece of the verse. Could be the second half of the chorus, and it's like built out before and after.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to be the chorus or like a repeating line in the song, but it might be, but it's probably just like I think of something in my head, and it could be like one phrase or one sentence. I often like to use like idioms and like phrases, colloquial phrases.
Can you give us an example of one right now? Do you have any on top of your head that would be like the starting point of what a song and one of the songs that you wrote on the Aurora program? Yeah,
like the second track is called Look What the Cat Dragged In, which is sort of like a funny English expression. And I think that was probably like the beginning of that song was like that phrase just like popped in my head for some reason. Look what the cat dragged in. It sort of became a song about me being like a big mess, like an emotional mess, or like some sort of like cat? Ugly, or like I'm what the cat dragged in, or
and you dragged yourself in.
Yeah, or I'm the cat dragging myself in. I don't know. It's not a literal. You can't take the metaphor too far. But it was kind of just like me feeling like I'm a total wreck.
A nervous wreck?
Nervous wrecked. And, but also like going back to the gratitude of that album was like appreciating, the people that I have in my life who are like really holding me up more than like I could ask for.
And sometimes that's you. And
Yeah.
I really wish we had a lot more time to get into the emotional status. And once I get a better equipment and for the long form, I really want to delve into that side of you and the depression and how it kind of brings out the music that you write, because I see it everywhere in what you do. Like it's
cool.
in the little pieces. It's, you know, and then that would be great if you could come back again.
Yeah.
And we could do it maybe an hour or an hour and a half in the future. But I do want you to play a song, because it's kind of the theme of this interview. Mm-hmm. It's the theme of this interview that you every artist plays a song. If you're a musician, because I'm not just interviewing musicians.
Okay.
Maybe visual artists or comedians maybe someday. But for now, it's you're a musician, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you going to play a song for us tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to play a brand new song. Nobody's actually heard it in its entirety except for a couple of people who are possibly going to be involved in the project.
Yep.
It's a song called Good Summer, and it's going to be on the electronic album. I've got more of an elaborate electronic setup with a lot of different synths and drum machines, a sample machine, some sequencers, a couple different microphones, and I didn't bring any of that today. I brought my loop station and my auto-tune pedal, and I'm going to run the mic through those, and it's going to be more of a stripped down set in terms of how much bulk I have around me.
That's
but I think it doesn't affect the performance at all. In fact, I'm sort of moving towards having a more minimalist electronic setup anyways.
You could, in this show, you can just kind of pluck one note and sing 2 notes if you like, or pluck 3 notes and play 1 note, or you can have one synth going for an hour, and whatever you want to do tonight's fine. And,
so
I think people will be gratuitous. For your performance.
And I did partly bring a stripped down set here just because it's easier. You know, I'm showing up to play one song, so why bring 20 things with me? But that's not the only reason, because like I said, I'm sort of moving towards this state of having my songs largely pre-recorded and focusing more on the performance instead of having to have all my fingers on different buttons all the time and feeling a bit distracted from what I'm trying to do. Yeah,
like generally you have a band and you're a lead singer, so I guess that to some extent there's some forgiveness for performance value. So I think that's the modern viewpoint, and that's fine with me. It's fine with a lot of people, and it can be good, it can be bad, but I know what you've produced and how you perform, and I think people will very much appreciate Good Summer.
Cool, thanks.
So thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Everybody.
Thanks for having me in your space. It's really cool here.
Thanks. So Good Summer by Conductor.
There was another way to say it, and I wouldn't have to say I had a good thing going until the summer when it came. That's just my luck, it's here to stay. So it's not and it's on its way. I'm left picking up the pieces. Weekends and on holidays, and I can't help but feeling, and all these feelings change. The chain of the seas, when the summer slipped away, it wasn't good summer. But now it's all just gone away. Good